So I want to show you how to get from your diagram to the model. I diagrammed all the atoms. I had to show which ones were the carbons and the hydrogens and so on. I color coded them. I'm going to use the black pieces to make my carbons. The blue one is going to be oxygen, green is going to be nitrogen, and the little white ones are my hydrogens. So I color coded my diagram. And now I'm ready to start constructing. So one way to do that is to just put the atoms down on the diagram where they're going to live in the model. That's just one way of keeping track while you're building it, what elements go where. It might not look exactly like it's going to look when it's done being assembled, but it's just kind of putting them all in the general location where they're going to be. And then I've got my bonds here. I'm going to start putting things together. I wanted to show you how to make a couple specific bonds. Like when you see there are two lines between two different elements, that's called a double bond. Here's how the bonds work. Each of the straws represents a covalent bond. When two atoms are joined together by sharing one electron from each atom. So this carbon here is going to share an electron, this electron, with the electron from another carbon atom. So they're sharing two electrons. That one straw makes a covalent bond. Co for sharing, sharing the valence electrons from these two atoms. Now this one has actually two covalent bonds between them. So when I do this, I'm going to bend so that both of these electrons can meet the straw. So like that. It makes a nice double bond. When I do that, these other ends sticking out are going to be in a flat plane. So they're going to kind of line up with each other like that. And so then I can go around and start adding the other atoms. This electron here on this carbon is going to be joined covalently. It's going to share with the electron from this carbon atom. So that tube, the straw, is the shared pair of electrons. There are two electrons in that tube being shared to make the bond. Then I'll go around to the next one, the next carbon joined to this carbon. One bond between them, two electrons being shared, and just working my way around the model. The next one, nitrogen. And then this, lost a bond there. This nitrogen is connecting, oh there it is in my hand, to this carbon here, and then this carbon to the last, to where I started, all the way around. Okay, so what I've done here is I've made this ring right here, that hexagon, like this. Now, when I look at it from the top, it looks like a ring. When I look at it from the side, it's not flat. And that's because when you made these atoms, you made them into tetrahedrons. Don't smash it flat. These should still keep their tetrahedral shape. It's going to put a bend in the molecule. Molecules have a three-dimensional shape. They're not flat unless it's their actual structure. But this one is not flat. It's got a bend to it. So keep those three-dimensional tetrahedral arrangements to give the shape to the molecule. Now this one right here, there's a carbon with two bonds to oxygen. So that's going to be this oxygen here. I'm just going to take two of these prongs, two of these electrons, and put some bonds on there. And then this carbon on the top, I'm going to bend those so that it will receive those two straws, like so. Okay. And now these two ends of the oxygen are sticking out. They're not bonding to anything. Oxygen only makes two chemical bonds. The other electrons are just sticking out. Electron pairs don't bond. It's the single electrons that make bonds. Alright, so this nitrogen has a carbon attached to it right there. So let me add another bond here. And I'll put it on. Now, you might wonder, should I put it on the top? Should I put it on the bottom? It doesn't really matter. If you're taking organic chemistry class, you'll learn more about where the bonds actually go. But for our purposes, we're just going to get the models built and hang them from the ceiling. Now I've put together all the backbone pieces. Now the hydrogens have to be added. That'll be last. Put on the details here. So this carbon gets 3 hydrogens and so on. I'll work my way around the model until I've got all the atoms connected. And when you're done, we'll figure out how to hang it from the report form that you're making. Each one of these models will have a diagram and it will have a little report on the other side. And when we'll find a square to hang it from up on the ceiling, make sure that you look at the checklist on the main assignment so that you know that you've fulfilled all the requirements of the model project. And I'll ask you questions about how the models work during the assessment. I'll ask you specifically about what do these bonds represent? How do those bonds work? What do the straws mean? I'll ask you about the prongs. Why do some elements make more bonds than others? Things like that. So you want to make sure that you review those main points. Alright, so here we go. I'm done with this molecule, and now I'll figure out how to hang it up.